I mean, the nice
Here
thing
we
about
are.
it,
We're live.
Oh, anybody's interested in that? It's a 2000 vintage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
winner, one of the best.
Yeah.
Well, a goodie anyway.
Here we
Hi,
are.
everyone.
Here we
Sorry,
are.
we're just chatting. We're actually a minute early, so we can just chat amongst ourselves.
We're
Hey, Finn.
chatting about what we found in the shed last week.
Yeah, a great find.
Hello, everybody.
Evening.
Evening.
It is now Thursday evening.
It's 18:59. The people are early. Hurrah!
1900 by my watch. I think.
It must be proper wine o'clock this evening.
Seriously
People
is,
are
yeah.
early.
Seriously is.
Interesting.
Evening, Clem. Finn, say good evening.
Evening.
Also good boy.
Good evening, Finn. Finn's going to start.
Hi.
Finn's got something to tell us this evening, which is kind of quite interesting.
Oh, well, let's see.
Hi, everybody. Here we are.
Evening. It's Thursday.
It's 7 o'clock.
It's lockdown live time. Hi, Luke. Hi, Simon. Hi, George, Mark, Kerry.
And we're talking about erupting volcanoes.
Boom.
Boom. We're back in black today.
Yes,
Back in black. These don't
volcanic.
come out very often. They're in actual fact brand new,
That's
although they're about 5 years old.
No, I think about it. They maybe look a bit smarter.
I know.
It's too late now.
I know. Hannibal Brown's getting on for 10 years this year. Is it 10 years this year?
No.
9 years.
9 years this year. Yeah.
No. Yes. It's going to be 9 years. 9 years old in November the 1st. And I think these shirts were probably bought about 9 years ago, but never worn.
Yeah, and I've definitely aged more than 12 years in that time. Hi, Jane. Cheers. So,
hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining again. It's Thursday evening and it's lockdown live time. So this is our volcanic part 2 because we did way back in 2020 anyway, but what month it was I couldn't tell you. It was pre-September.
No.
We also talked about volcanic wines.
Yeah.
Hi, Felicity and Jane. Thanks for joining.
In fact, we just went back to see when our first lockdown live event was, and it was, what day was it?
It was the 19th of April, I think.
16th of April. 16th of April 2020 was when the first one was there. So if you followed us all the way through, my God, you need a gold medal. Well done, everybody. Well done.
You've drunk a lot of wine.
But you're always welcome, and it's great to see you. And there's only a couple left this week and next week.
Yeah, I mean, we've just obviously not celebrated, but had the anniversary of the first lockdown.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really for that reason, purely because Easter's coming and the world is opening up a little bit. So we thought we would give everyone a chance to go and drink wine in real life with real people.
Yeah.
But it might not be the end of these. We still have rosé next week.
We've got to, oh God, I've got a real bugbear actually. Anybody that says, listen to the data, that just annoys me so intensely now. Everybody's using that expression, but we're going to listen to the data and decide whether we're going to come back and do another lockdown live in May.
Basically listen to the radio and the news says no one can go out. We'll just send you all some wine and make you listen again.
Yeah.
So here we are. Here's Finn. Here's us. I'm Jude. This is Finn. This is Pam, in case we've got anyone new joining us. We love a bit of point of difference. And we have quite a number of volcanic wines in our range.
We do. It's kind of interesting, actually, because obviously we do. I know you probably don't believe this, but we do actually try to do a little bit of research before we go live on air every Thursday evening.
It's all from the.
But it is surprising, actually, how little information is out there about sort of generally volcanic wines. So we've got one lockdown live event, which was Volcanoes last year, which is there up on YouTube for eternity. So if you ever want to look back, you can. And then today we're going to talk a little bit more about it, in actual fact, aren't we?
That's what it's all about. Yeah. So I don't know if anybody had the chance to get their arancini ready.
Oh my God.
But I finally managed to cook ours today. We had the risotto like 3 days ago.
They are absolutely delicious.
So there's only 3 left. Clearly we've had a bit of a nosh. And they're also not golf ball sized. Mine's ended up a little bit more tennis ball-esque.
I love them.
So less of a canapé, more of a 3-biter. But still a really good accompaniment to these wines. And something, according to Susan, Pam's sister, who is also sort of an ex-resident of Italy, when the Sicilians get off the boat, all they want is to get straight to the bar and have some arancini.
Yeah, just like this one.
A glass of wine. Yeah, look at this.
Got his eyes on them. And I don't blame him in fact. Yeah, no, they're absolutely delicious. Give them a go. They're properly worth it.
So a little word on a little word on volcanoes and what that means for wine, and then I'm going to show you some pictures. Basically, there's kind of quite a number of very world-renowned wine regions which are volcanic, which are considered way up there in the wine world in terms of the quality of the wines that they produce. And I think one of the reasons that people like volcanic wines, and volcanic wines is a bit of a thing, is that they're very different, because it's not just a soft fruity red, and it's not just a juicy zippy white. There's a bit more to them, isn't there? Different characteristics.
Yeah, they've got this kind of they have this sort of minerality, a little bit of sort of salinity, I think is a word, isn't it? Slight saltiness. You never get huge, massive, almost overwhelming reds. They're always kind of middle of the road in terms of weight. And so if you don't like your reds too heavy, then actually volcanic wines are lovely to go.
Quite a good option.
But obviously very, very natural. And anybody who's got the wine in front of us, the Cielo Bianco, you will probably have already noticed that when you pour it, it's kind of cloudy. There's nothing wrong with it, I promise you. It's throwing a huge sediment and has done at the bottom of the bottle. You will see, and there is a prize for anybody who can extract a great big chunk of tartrate.
Actually, ours is dissolved. So the wines,
but these are unfiltered, unfined wines. So they're left on the lees, which is basically all sort of the residual yeasts sitting in the bottom of the bottle. So nothing is extracted out, but of course the ramifications of that are that actually you can often end up with a slightly cloudy wine, but there's nothing wrong with it at all.
It's delicious, actually. Cheers everyone. Happy Thursday.
Yeah.
Ding. Ding. That wasn't really quite a ding, because I'm drinking out of a plastic glass, which is arguably a good thing, but also
can't be trusted.
Broken all the others.
Anyway, so here we are in Sicily.
This is Sicily. And shall I go through these sort of top 8?
Go for it.
Regions, volcanic regions in the world that have
Should we do that?
acclaim.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be quick.
Go through the volcanic regions.
Here's some good pictures.
Pay attention.
So let me just make that bigger.
Oh, who's that?
It's gone all together. Hang on a minute. So number one, and one that very, very famous that we've probably all heard of, and some of us would have tasted wines from, is Santorini in Greece.
If you can afford them.
Santorini produce phenomenally good wines, but my word, you pay for them.
Absolutely.
So expect to pay 20
through the gums, through everything.
Yeah, expect to pay £20 upwards. Yeah. Some very nice wines, but you need to know that you're going to get a good wine at the end of that.
And you've got to get to Santorini, and then you've got to sort of dwell in Santorini. I mean, by the end of it, you're really not going to have a penny left.
But there we go. So that's
but they are good wines.
Yeah, fantastic.
Good wines. You pay a premium, but they are good wines.
And in Santorini, you'll notice these are the grapevines, right? Now you'll notice they look like little short bushes, and here this is the way they train them. Yeah. And this is really interesting, actually. They call it kind of like basket training.
Yeah.
So instead of having them growing along, along wires, they train them into these baskets, and actually the grapes, the fruit, forms in the middle.
I know, I love it. Volcano vine growing, it's so geeky.
Brilliant.
It's
brilliant. And it's protected. And these baskets are actually quite big. They're like knee high, aren't they, or thigh high?
And as you said, this is really sort of protection from sort of prevailing winds, which you often get on the foothills of volcanoes, as you can imagine. Because most volcanoes, and people don't realise, these wines are from Sicily. Etna is 3,500 meters high. Now the Alps is 4,300 meters, so they're not that much lower than the Alps. This is a massive, great volcano, and actually the growing elevation goes from sort of 500 meters to 1,000 meters. So very, very high, cool, and windy. So baskets, good idea.
Keep the low profile. Yeah.
You could plant petunias in that.
In the basket, get in the way of the grapes. Okay, here we go. Next one. Etna.
Lovely.
Really considered up there among some of the best regions, especially volcanic regions in the world. And there it is. Look, the rows of vines, and it's there smouldering away in the background. I've just got to show you something. Look at this dog.
Yeah.
Look at this dog. Look at his little feet.
Yeah. There he is.
He's ready to pounce on an arancini. Okay, so yeah, Etna definitely considered way up there. It's the most active volcano in Europe, actually, Etna.
Volcanoes have to be, in order they're called active, and in order that they be called or defined as active, they have had to have exploded within the last 1,000 years.
Or erupted, some would say
erupted within the last 1,000 years.
Okay, so
and Etna seems erupts all the bloody time.
Yeah,
really.
that's seriously active.
Smooking.
Mega active.
Smooking. Yeah.
So rattling through the last few. This is Solmo in Hungary. Okay, this is an extinct volcano, but I remember tasting a wine from here.
Looks like a church to me.
Being absolutely, well, look at the sort of hill behind it. I remember tasting wine from here and being absolutely blown away. The white grape is a rather sort of entertainingly called Ufark,
I beg your pardon.
which is I think it translates as sheep's tail, right? So the grapes grow in these tight bunches that look a bit like sheep's tails. So that's Solmo in Hungary. Really, if you do see a wine from there, they're expensive again, but boy, they're so good. And then here, this is an interesting one. This is actually a wine region of Portugal.
Oh yes. This is in the Azores.
Yeah, there you go. That's just the answer to the question. This is in the Azores, and they put these basalt walls. They pick the rocks, the volcanic rocks from the ground, build these walls, and the vines grow in those square compartments, again, to protect them from the wind, because this is quite a barren island.
So, yeah, the bit of perspective, those walls are pretty high.
Yes, still quite high. Probably, waist high or so.
Do you think they get prisoners to do that?
Probably. I'm not sure. Do they send prisoners to the Azores, or do they just have got a high crime rate? Okay, here we go. This is Bodega Tajnaste, which is in the Canary Islands in Tenerife. We tasted our lovely Tenerife wine last time.
Anybody who hasn't tasted the Tajnaste wine from the Canaries, really get onto our website, hannibalbrown.com, and look at, wines from the Canaries, Tajnaste. It's Listan Blanco, and it's really, really good.
Delicious. Yeah, delicious. And a good price.
Yeah.
So, it's not £20 a bottle.
Yeah.
Now, this also, memory, the volcano in Tenerife is the highest peak in all of Spain. So there you go.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
Because what you don't get, the perspective you don't get that actually, is that these foothills, they're actually very, very steep. And so it requires sort of all sort of manual labor. So there ain't no tractors going up and down that hill. It's just that would be
just a bit of immigrant workforce.
Yeah.
Okay, Campania in Italy. This is where that's Mount Vesuvius, in fact. So Naples area.
Napoli,
we know we all tasted together one of our wines from there. Soave up in the north of Italy. Okay, this is ancient and quite clearly quite extinct. But the soils there are very rich in minerals and volcanic.
Yeah.
Even if the eruptions were a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then finally, America had to feature somewhere. And this is stunning Lake County, California, which admittedly, it was 11,000 years ago that the volcano erupted. But there it is.
So I've got a question.
Go on.
Have we got any volcanoes in the UK?
Yes. So here we go.
Pay attention, everybody.
I want to actually challenge anyone to name one. Yeah. We've got a lot in the whole of the UK. We've got quite a few, and you will have been to some of these. Extinct volcanoes, or hills, hills and kind of
mounds.
Big hills. We don't really do mountains particularly that have made from these volcanoes. So, where are they in the UK? What do you reckon? And we'll come back to that. So the interesting thing and the most important thing about these soils, these volcanic soils, is they are super fertile.
Yeah.
And in the world of soil, they're young. I think these have just been chucked out of the depth of the earth and landed. Whereas the rest of the soil that we're all walking on from a daily basis, that's been that's been around for ages, hasn't it? For the millions of years.
Yeah.
Whereas this is actually maybe 5,000-10,000 years old, some of this, which is actually growable on.
Yeah.
A volcano that's just erupted and has lobbed lava everywhere, and that lava has, cooled, and you've got all this rock. You're not going to be able to just go and plant your tomato plants in there like next week. This is like a couple of decades for it to weather and chill out a bit, turn into soil. Then you can look to start to plant something. But actually, in the world of soil, they're really young, so they're really, rich in minerals and so iron, magnesium, phosphorus, massively rich in these. And actually, if you look at the main ingredients of most commercial fertilizers, those are three of the compounds that they use. So, but these are just there naturally, so you just don't need that.
Yeah. Not to mention sulfites.
And sulfur,
that wonderful preservative that protects everything.
Indeed. Yeah. Indeed. There, naturally.
Yeah.
No need for any more. Yeah. There's some good answers coming through here, actually. Yeah. Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Edinburgh. Giant's Causeway, Luke.
Yeah.
Yes. Now that actually leads me to I wanted someone to say Giant's Causeway because that is where Finn McCool.
This is where he comes from.
That's where his name originated from.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, Giant's Causeway is a result of ancient volcanic.
Box Hill, I like that. Box Hill. Well,
I'm not sure. Actually,
it's a good answer. I like that.
Keep it close to home.
When it's pretty huge.
Probably way back when it was.
Do you see some pics?
Oh yeah, here we go. So yeah, another Edinburgh, bound to be one in Wales. Yeah, there is actually.
There's bound to be one in Wales. Eau Claire. Eau Claire.
It's not said it with much conviction. It's kind of like, it's Wales again. Here we go. So Bush. Giant's Causeway. Yeah. I mean, we're talking seriously extinct. 60 million years ago, this happened. And it was due to that volcanic activity that it pushed those amazing patterns of rock up from the seabed. Obviously, there is another story, and it's to do with Finn McCool.
Yeah. And the causeway and stuff.
Exactly, but we'll go with the scientific answer for now. So yeah, bang on. And actually, Edinburgh has been said by George. Also bang on Bush. There it is, Arthur's Seat. When I went to Edinburgh, it was bloody freezing, which I'm sure is not unusual.
You couldn't see it.
There. It wasn't that long ago.
It was under a sheet of rain.
There were people snowboarding off it.
Oh, yes.
Of course, you have to walk up with the snowboard, which is a right old pain. Yeah. But it was, there had been like a foot or so of snow, and it was lovely. Mm-hmm. So, bang on, Arthur's Seat. Good, cool.
Yeah. Any others?
And here we go. Yeah, one more, which hasn't been mentioned. Oh, actually, just going to mention, I don't have Wales on my list, but Snowdonia National Park, their hills were a result of volcanic activity, but not directly a volcano. So you sort of made the cut, Claire, but we're going to mention Wales in a minute because it wouldn't be a tasting if we didn't compare the size of somewhere to the size of Wales. So, and then this is the final one. Does anybody know where that is? Looks alarmingly like a bigger version of Arthur's Seat, really, but it's not. You'd probably be more familiar with it if it was covered in snow, I'm guessing.
Or rain again.
Or rain and midges.
Midges, yes.
I'm just going to nod to Luke's point here. He went on the tour in the Giant's Causeway in November and managed to get a suntan. In fact, we went in January and it was lovely.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little microclimate around there, but I've got to say we didn't get suntan, Luke. I think you need to have a slightly more ginger complexion for that sort of tanning. And a drunken cheesemonger in Wales said Snowdonia was, well, as I said, a result of, but not directly.
You can't have everything, Welshies. You can't have everything.
No, exactly. You can have the rain and the weather, though. This is Glencoe. So Glencoe. Oh, Ben Never. Yeah, good guess. So Glencoe also, but there are plenty more. But there were just a few, make you realise that you don't have to travel anymore. You can go to sunny Scotland to see a volcano.
Yeah.
Oh, did you mean Nevis, George? I thought that was a really a good sort of slip of the tongue.
What does it say?
Ben Never. I thought this was due to a sort of failed summit attempt or something. Anyway, there you go. There is a bit of volcanic,
Yeah. And I think the nice thing is actually about these volcanoes is that, as I said, sort of as a generic, there is a bit of a movement, and I'm kind of really, really quite excited about sort of pursuing wines that may grown on volcanic soils, because they do, as I said, they have this very, very individual style characteristics. And the wines actually of Etna, now they are really actually tipping the balance across the world. And there's a huge following, which is actually increased the price phenomenally. So wines that are grown on the volcanic soils of Sicily, of Etna these days, you're looking at sort of north of £20 a bottle every time and more. So for the purpose of this evening, we've taken two wines, Cielo Rosso and Cielo Red and Cielo Bianco, which are much more affordable. They're around about the £10 mark.
£9.50. They're really
£9.50,
brilliant value for money.
bargains.
Mm-hmm.
They are from
Western.
Alcamo, which is sort of on the western side in actual fact. So sort of slightly further away from Sicily, but from Etna, but nonetheless, actually really, really natural. And as we were just saying, about the white, you can see that actually the naturalness of this by virtue of the fact that it hasn't been filtered whatsoever. So
unfiltered, and this is something you might want to just explain to people the significance of, because it might just sound like sort of, well, we can sell it for £1 cheaper if we don't bother filtering it.
So imagine your fermentation, your big sort of fermentation vat of grapes and what have you, and it's bubbling away and giving off lots of heat and CO2 and this, that, and the other. And once it's sort of subsided, you either sort of run the juice, the free juice off the skins, or you basically leave it on the skins, which is essentially what's happened with this wine. It's been left on the skins. Obviously, the skins and the lees and the residual yeast in there, which is no longer active, is just sitting at the bottom of the tank. But rather than actually filtering it off, they leave it. They just literally just pour the juice off it. And the thinking really for that is actually, why would you want to strip the wine of any particular character? Because any form of filtration is going to sort of, strip a certain amount of character. So actually, we like wines that are unfiltered or unfined, whatever. And so what if they're slightly cloudy? It really doesn't matter. It means that they are, they haven't been stripped of anything. They are in their purest form.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it kind of.
But anyway,
always gives us a bit of pleasure when we see a
bit of lump floating
around.
Should we talk about Sicily?
Yeah, Sicily is only 5 square kilometres bigger than Wales.
Hey! It's got a bigger population than Wales, though. It's got 5 million people live there.
Cool.
And 3.1 million live in Wales.
There you go.
Yeah.
And 2.9 of those are in Cardiff.
And what did we say last week in Mendoza, which is like 6 times the size of Wales? There's only about 20 people live there.
Yeah, it's tiny. I can't remember what the actual population was.
But here's the thing about Sicily. So Sicily was always known as, the massive, one of the biggest producers of grapes, wine grapes and sort of table grapes in Italy. Mm-hmm. And it was all used for bulk. And just to give you an idea, in actual fact, in the 1990s, only 2% of everything that was produced in Sicily was bottled. The other 98% was sold to bulk. And when I'm talking sold to bulk, I'm talking about sold in bulk to blend into other wines. Now, a lot of the wines that were produced in northern Italy, so Barolo in Piedmont or Chianti in Tuscany, all of these regions were actually reliant on Sicily for supplying bulk wine to shore up the quality or quantity that maybe they didn't produce because they didn't have good, decent, whether that on that particular vintage.
So would this be but filling in the 15% that isn't the grape that's written on the tin?
Yeah,
sort of thing?
But also bit more,
another 15%,
a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean Sicily really in isolation is probably one of the it certainly shares responsibility with the Languedoc region of southern France for the massive great wine river that was created back in the 80s, the wine lake. Mm-hmm. And really because they were just like banging out quantity. They really didn't give a toss about the quality. It was just bulk, and there was no sort of incentive to make it any better.
No, well, there was a market for also just people who drink it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Why
so,
bother?
But actually, to give you it's kind of interesting. So today, the country, what do you say? It's around about the same size as Wales.
Yeah, just about.
They got 100,000 hectares of grapes.
Okay,
100,000. But in the 19th century, they had 300,000 hectares. So they've got a history of producing masses and masses and masses. The majority used to be used for Marsala. Marsala is a fortified wine, very, very low quality fortified wine.
Maybe don't go there. There's probably a couple of producers who are doing really well, and otherwise it's just
So there they were churning all this wine out, and it was just almost like undrinkable. But it was being blended into something better up north in the north of Italy. but largely it was sort of responsible for this massive Great Wine Lake. Anyway, but eventually the EU, or probably the Italians, came along and said, okay, we've got to give Sicilians a bit of an incentive here to improve the quality and what have you. So they started giving them a bit of funding to improve things, but they didn't really do anything. They just kept producing all this rubbish.
Do with the money? Just
and then
spent it.
Yeah, of course they did.
New cars, new shoes.
The sort of Casa Nostra as well. Don't forget. But also but then eventually there were a few sort of individual producers who thought, come on, guys, we can do something better here, and started introducing French grape varieties like your Cabernet Sauvignons and your Syrahs and your Tempranieros from Spain and what have you, to try and improve the quality. And they did by and large. So the quality has improved, but bear in mind in the 1990s, 2% was bottled and 98% was sold as bulk. Today,
that's crazy.
Today, still less than 20% is bottled and over 80% is still sold to bulk. So
still
it's
still a lot of bulk.
Still quite something. So which means that actually it's quite easy to look for Sicilian wines. If you're looking specifically for Sicilian wines, most retailers in the UK, we've already done the work for most people. There's not that many producers in the bigger picture. And the producers that you can actually find in the UK market are pretty good.
Okay,
because they've done all the sort of.
Is it a safe bet to go for cheap Sicilian wine when you see it? Affordable, like, these are really good value. And
I think you have to trust a very good merchant to have done that job for you.
It's true. It's true.
But to be honest, it's not bottled. It's sold as bulk. So what is bottled is actually reasonably okay now.
Yeah. Okay. And then on the other end of the scale, you have the phenomenally good, which you pay for, which is the Etna Rosso and Etna Bianco.
Yeah.
So this is the appellation of Etna, where the quality, because it's an appellation, is controlled, and therefore you have to, as a producer, follow all these rules in order to call it that.
Yeah.
And the quality is excellent.
Yeah.
But again, you're paying for it.
Yeah.
And if you want to have some really good examples of that, go on the website. Our Occhipinti Bianco and Rosso, both Etna wines, brilliant. Arianna Occhipinti is the winemaker. She's brilliant. And they're just delicious. And we also have the Cos, which is a red, which is the grape is Frappato.
Yeah.
That's also Etna.
A light
lovely
red
wines.
Grape variety. A light red grape variety.
And I think they're both biodynamic, aren't they?
They are biodynamic. But also something else that's really easy to remember. So if you're looking for Sicilian wines with a DOC or sort of an appellation, remember that only 5%, not even 5% of the wines produced in Sicily are under that DOC. So if you find wines with DOC, then that's a pretty good endorsement, a pretty good statement that actually they're going to be drinkable.
You just have to look at the price point
Again, you're just not going to see this bulk, this sort of shitty stuff, because it's just not bottled. It's sold as bulk.
Got it. Yeah. And you certainly won't see it from Hannibal Brown, obviously. No. Right. No. So actually, good point, Luke. The Cello Rosso.
Yeah.
Let's taste it.
Yeah.
So the Cello Rosso. Things really getting his big pause in there today.
Yeah.
The Cello Rosso.
So can I just one more thing, just to say a couple of things about the white wine then. So one of the things they do here is, because they do take the wine sort of quality seriously, so they ferment this wine at around about 16 to 18 degrees. And now that is very low temperature for an alcoholic fermentation, which means that they protect the acidity, they protect the sort of ripe sort of fruity characteristics. And back in the day, the Sicilians were sort of fermenting their wines at 28, 30, 35 degrees, which basically means that they were cooking their wines, and not very good at all. There's this other thing in that fermentation that you get. There's an alcoholic fermentation, and then there's a secondary fermentation called malolactic fermentation, where the malic acids convert to lactic acids. And some wines go through this if the acidity is a little bit too sort of appley, too zippy. This doesn't go through it because they want to protect the acidity they've already got. Bear in mind, Sicily is quite hot, even though this is from quite a hot region.
But pretty much all red wines.
It does retain a nice acidity, and then it's aged on its lees, all this nonsense until it's bottled, really. So yeah, I think it's rather nice.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's really lovely and fresh. We did get someone send us a message a couple of weeks ago with a photograph of their bottle on its side, and this like ring of crusty sediment floating in it, and they're like, "This is all right. You know, this is like we've got 2 bottles, and this is in both of them."
Yeah,
and it is kind of unusual looking sediment. And I went to our stores we had on hand and had a look, and I'm like, yeah, they're all like that. Actually,
every single one of them.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
If you taste it and it tastes wrong, then we'll obviously always refund you or replace it. But taste it. There's nothing wrong with sediment. You just don't get it very often.
Yeah.
So.
And the guy did come back and ask that, and he said yes, he enjoyed it very much.
He loved it, yeah, which is great. Which is even better when you're expecting it to be awful.
Yeah.
Okay, now the Cielo Rosso.
Yes.
Moving on, onwards and upwards. Or just sideways, really, because they're both good. And they're both ridiculously good value for money. So this is Nero Davila. Nero Davila is like, it's an indigenous grape to Sicily. You only really find it from Sicily.
It's the most extensively grown grape variety in Sicily.
There you are.
Yeah, and it is indigenous to Sicily, as Jude says.
It's
Nero, black.
Avola.
From Avola.
Avola, village in the west, somewhere as well.
No, southeast.
Nearly
southeast.
West, sort of on the way to the west. But this isn't actually from there. This is from the west. So that's what I meant, really. And again, it's a red wine from a hot climate, but it's only 12.5%. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? So
cool winds,
so cool Mediterranean breezes. Yeah. So often when you get these really warm climates, you end up with a big monster of a wine, and it will. Yeah, you know about it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, the fact is that this is actually it's very, very close to the coast. So it does get sort of nice cool breezes. And the nice thing about Sicilian wine is the Nero Davila. If you look at Sicily and you basically make a quadrant of it, you cut it into 4, then each of the regions are going to produce a totally different style of Nero Davila because they've got different prevailing weather. I mean, I remember going to Sicily and the weather wasn't good.
What time of year was it?
In September. It rains and rains. It can properly rain. It's not a desert in Sicily, although in the inside of Sicily, it can get super hot. Super, super hot. But pretty much on the coast, you get these lovely breezes.
Okay, so bear in mind that Etna is in the far
east. A bit like living in Brighton, I suppose.
Or just Britain.
Or Britain.
Wales, even. So here's a few Sicilian facts.
Yeah.
It's actually, there is a language which is Sicilian. Sicily used to have its own language, and it still is spoken out in the, I'm not sure you can say
boonies.
We're allowed to say boonies.
Yeah,
in the boonies, in the bonitos, bonillos. So Sicilian, they do have their own language. They are quite an independent sort of department in essence. I think on paper they are officially independent, but it's not really run like that.
Yeah.
They have some of the best Greek ruins outside of Greece.
Yeah, they did. They had a lot of Greeks come in, didn't they? They were Phoenicians and all sorts.
Yeah, vases.
Everybody landed in Sicily because it was a stopping point.
It's the largest island in the Mediterranean.
There you go.
Followed by the second largest island in the Mediterranean is also Italian. Which island do you think it is? Yes, George, we have fed Finn. He's been really difficult because there's 3 lovely arancini.
Beautiful arancini. There.
He won't leave us alone. No, there's one last biscuit. Look, show us your pink chin. Oh, he's a good boy. What's the second largest island in Europe, which is also Italian? We've said it's only 5 square kilometers bigger than Wales, which is, just a certain number of football pitches.
Yeah.
And here there was a very, very ancient and famous mathematician and inventor, who actually also happens to be the name of, I think, our first hamster when we were children.
Oh, really?
But that's not going to help you guess it. And who was he? He had a moment. A eureka moment.
He did have a eureka moment. It's all about water displacements.
And there are some interesting, fascinating facts. Yeah. And also the mafia.
Yeah.
Now, we won't talk in too much depth about the mafia, but I was listening to a winemaker talking about the setting up of their winery and their business, and they really delayed to put off setting it up because they had to work into the finances the pizzo, which is your standard security money that you pay the mafia.
Yeah.
And it's not even, it is a consideration almost built into the business plan and your financing.
Built into Sicilian's mindset.
Yeah, and it's not, I think it can vary massively in how much it is, but, there are people who don't pay it. And actually, I think there are guides you can follow for products, food and drink when you're in Sicily that you can buy from non-mafia related companies. But basically it's a big problem, and it's not with protection. You're paying to be protected from them. You're paying them to protect you from them, basically.
But it also, I suppose the flip side of that is that it's protection money, but it also actually protects from unwanted competition. So just playing devil's advocate a little bit
that
here.
Is serious devil's.
But it does keep unwanted, maybe sort of, I don't know.
I doubt they're really protecting your business interests, are they?
One other way of looking at it.
Right. Well, we will come.
Too much competition.
We will come back to with the mafia debate. Are they or aren't they a good thing? I'm still going to be on the against side. Galileo, no, it was Archimedes.
Archimedes, come on! Where have you been looking? Look at the Suez Canal. That poor old boat.
And it's a tenuous link, but yeah. And then Sardinia is the second largest island in Europe.
Yeah.
Actually, when you look at it on the map, I always think Sardinia looks bigger, but maybe that's because it's got what's it called above it? Corsica right above it. So yeah, I mean, that's in a nutshell. That's a real quick nutshell. What else do you want to say about the old?
So Nero Davila characteristics: nice, soft, easygoing. You should be able to taste sort of like cherries and damsons and plummies.
It's really good. This
not too tannic, which is nice actually. Often it can be blended with something a little bit more. Well, some of the French grape varieties like the Cabernets and what have you gives it a bit more structure and a bit more tannin. But actually, on its own, it's great. And they always say Nero Davila goes really, really well with pizza base, the tomato and the pizza base. So
yeah, I could see that, and arancini, obviously,
arancini,
But no, yeah, it is the pizza wine
because it's got that. It has got that sort of nice sort of fresh acidity to it.
For the tomatoes,
picks up on the tomato and pizza.
Yeah,
so if you're looking for really good pizza, then obviously you have to go to Sicily. Because I can't think of anywhere really good pizza in I'm sure
we've got Pizza Euphoria at the end of the road, actually. Very good.
Restaurant down the
which is as far as we're going to close to Sicily as we're going to go. Here, I've got a couple of other volcano questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Here's two more bits of trivia for you before we disappear and leave you to our arancini, or for our arancini. So, where do you think the tallest volcano in the solar system is? And whilst you think about that and put an answer down, I'm going to tell you about the tallest in Earth. The tallest volcano on Earth stands pretty much next to the largest volcano on Earth, which is just a bit more wide than tall. And they're both in Hawaii. So here you go. I'm going to tell you the figures here. Mauna Kea is the tallest at 4,200 meters above sea level.
Okay, and Etna's 3,400.
Yeah, so high, but
that's like the Alps. Yeah,
but actually, this volcano really starts from the seabed, which are these in Hawaii. They're like basically straight up out of the ocean.
Yeah.
And if you took it from the bottom of the seabed, you're talking over 10,000 meters high.
Wowza!
I mean, that is
10 kilometers.
Sorry. Yeah.
10 kilometers.
Huge.
That's a long way. That's a long way to run.
That is a long way to run, straight up in the air.
Yeah.
And then Mauna Loa is only a little bit lower, but much wider, at 4,169 meters. So Hawaii, I would love to go to Hawaii. Yeah. There's some really awful wineries there.
Yeah.
But there is actually quite a wine movement. And I think there's probably some quite good quality there now as well. And a lot of very volcanic soil.
Absolutely. Okay, so where is this?
So here you go. As all the suggestions have come flooding in, and it's Mars. The volcano on Mars is 27 kilometers high. I suppose they don't have an ocean.
So that's nearly 3 times the size of the one in Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, especially from the
ocean.
seabed, because the Earth's crust is coming up from the Earth's crust almost, it's a continuous bubbling mass that's just growing and growing and growing and growing. So who knows, at some
And is it
point,
active?
Yeah, Mars is an active volcano, isn't it? It's just the whole thing, burning, bubbling. Yes, it's very active.
I'm not going.
No. Well, Elon Musk is a while away from Mars tourism.
So
cool. Here we
anyway,
go.
if you want to know more about volcano wines, go onto our website and just tap in the search bar. Just tap in sort of volcanoes or volcanic and what have you. And there's quite a few wines that come up. We just mentioned wine from the Canary Islands. We mentioned the wines from
Occhipinti
and Naples as well. Forgotten.
The Aglianico Pompeano.
That's right, Pompeano, easy to remember, Pompeii. But if you want to know any more about volcanic wines, then just give us a shout. We have written a few sort of blogs about it, but not for ages.
Yeah, there's all sorts of information. You know how to get hold of us. So next week, the finale. Rosé.
We're revisiting Rosé, but we're going to be looking at new vintages, so 2020.
If we all drink rosé together, the sun will shine.
The sun will shine.
It's official.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a rain dance in reverse.
Yeah.
And then we'll see. We'll take a few weeks of planning. We might. This is something I've stumbled upon.
Oh yes.
The weekend in the shed. I was cleaning out the shed, and there was a sort of it's a brick built shed, and there was this kind of rotting lump in the corner. It's quite a damp shed. And I picked it up, and it was it used to be a wooden box, but within the kind of compost that I picked up was 12 bottles of 2000
vintage Centre from Bordeaux.
So having uncovered this is a bit of a surprise. Pam had obviously been, I don't know how it ended up there without being totally forgotten about. We opened a couple of bottles, obviously.
Yeah. Kind of interesting, actually. We opened 2 bottles, and the corks were both perfectly intact. So although the wine looks like this, in actual fact, it does scrub up very nicely.
Yeah.
The cork was intact. The closure was absolutely fine. The first one was absolutely rotten to the core.
Bad.
To the core, which sort of sent alarm bells out. Open the second one. Delicious.
Stunning.
Absolutely
Lovely.
delicious. What you would expect of an old sort of 21-year-old Bordeaux. It was wonderful. Now, which means that we've got 10 bottles left. So if anybody fancies taking a punt, then obviously we will expect that there might be 1 or 2 others that are slightly below par. But having said that, there's no real reason for it.
No. I mean, Susan's actually just trying to stake claim to them, so I'll leave that. I'll leave that to the Gregories to sort out. But anyway, we might well have even a little tasting of that if you're interested.
There's something really, really lovely about being able to taste something with such age to it, because it's so unusual to get these old wines.
Oh, right? And it was just
a 21-year-old sort of Saint-Estèphe from Bordeaux is quite.
It was soft and silky and not like a big bruiser. Really perfect, elegant.
Yeah.
So we're also going to come up with some other themes. We might send out a little survey and get a bit of feedback from you guys as to some ideas that we've got brewing for some other little tastings. And hopefully one of these days we're going to put an actual date in the diary.
My sister is claiming fame for it. I think I left it there. Well, if you leave it here, then what do you expect?
I think you get squatters' rights after something like 8 years, isn't it? So
right, I think that's it.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Finn and me and Jude.
He's waving.
Cheerio. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and make sure you make the arancini.
Have the
absolutely delicious. So, ciao, buonasera, and see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.